Now you take the time off after the second run, right? What inspired you to build Miami Prep from the beginning? And I don't know if like this is my interpretation of it, but at the time, even now, even right now, I know that it's like everything else. When one thing pops up, a whole bunch of other things start to pop up, right?
Correct.
Prep schools were very popular outside of Miami, right? Very big.
Northeast.
Exactly, especially in the Northeast. Not many here,
right?
And prep schools, a lot of people will consider them to be a money bag, right? But they're important. And some of them really are. They're just places where you just go play in a 6-year, but then there are places that establish, they say, you come here, the money's spent, but we're getting you to the next level. There's a guarantee there.
Yeah, that's so true, Danny. Well, our situation, I think it's really different. First of all, we scholarship a lot of the players.
Right. That's important.
That. So, prep schools don't make money. You're just, you're happy if you break even. And sometimes you lose money. I lost money the first 2 years.
There's so much traveling going on.
So much. So what I wanted to do, Danny, is, as you well know, the NCAA provides a senior graduated what they call a gap year.
Exactly.
Which means that if you graduate and you go to a prep school, you don't lose that year of eligibility.
Right.
But you got to do it, right after high school. You can't take a year off and then do it and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So think about it. You and I have been around basketball, especially in Dade County, for a long time. So how many kids that if they would have had an extra year would have gone on to college? If they would have had an extra year of getting the proper exposure, if they would have had an extra year of getting stronger?
I think that point is more valid, the exposure. Because there's a lot of kids that play for a lot of people and that don't have the network. Right.
Correct.
Sometimes the network is just as important. And that's what's important for a prep school.
Correct.
A person 100%. That has a network. Yeah.
100%. So, it was kind of like, all right, I accomplished everything I had accomplished in high school. I'm going to go ahead and open a school and provide a platform to kids, not only locally but from everywhere in the country, to come in and then use that 1 year to showcase their talent so they could be recruited and go on to college.
Right.
And that was the reason for doing it, because there were so many kids that just kind of ended their careers. Think about it. You're a high school senior and you have nowhere to go. Your career's pretty much ended. And how many players you and I know that are very good players, but just, again, they just didn't get the proper exposure. They just weren't offered, et cetera, et cetera. So I said, I think this is going to help a lot of kids. Again, our journey is to help kids and change their lives.
But you could have stayed retired.
I could have stayed retired.
So what scratched the itch to like really say, oh, now I'm going to dedicate all this time?
And I was coming up on 60 years old. To this date, I'm 62 years old.
Okay.
So I'm like, how long am I going to do this stuff, the whole thing, and this and that. So I said, I'm going to try this. So I opened. So our first year, prep school, we go 41-5, and we sent 9 kids to college. That was the COVID year. That was the year where college coaches weren't allowed to come watch us play, and that was the year that the kids couldn't go on visits to universities. So we went 41-5 because we're allowed to play as many games as we want, right? We could play 50, 55 games, the whole thing.
As many as you can afford.
As many as you can afford. That's a good point. And, of course, those are the ones that you want to get kids on to college. Well, that's the year that we had we had Norchad Omier, which is a phenom basketball player in Miami. And then we also had a kid that we sent to FIU. His name is Petar Kravakovic, which he's from Montenegro in Europe. And then we had some other kids that went on to college.
My mind went straight to like Dominican Republic.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a Montenegro in Dominican Republic.
Right, there is. So we said, okay, so we did that, and our first year was very successful, and we got this kid from Nicaragua, from Bluefield, Nicaragua, that nobody knew about, and somebody had brought him to my basketball camp that summer, and they said, hey, listen, I got a kid that 17 years old, he has a pro contract, and I have a plane ticket. All I want to do is stop at your camp so he can work out. Yeah, bring him on down. So
this is the one you do in July, right? That camp?
Right, the one I'm doing in July. End of June, beginning of July.
Yeah, okay.
That's correct. So I don't know, about over 150 kids.
At this time, the prep school was not up.
Was not up.
Okay.
Was not up. We were just kind of thinking about it. We thought about it. We were going in that direction. So the kid comes in, he's 6'7", and he's jumping, and coaches are coming to me saying, "Who's this kid? Who's this kid? Who's this kid?" He goes, "He's from Nicaragua." And as the week went on, I called him, and then he was with the gentleman that had brought him, that helped him. And I said, another true story, Danny. I said, let me have the airline ticket, and let me have the pro contract. They have no idea what I'm about to do to these two items, right? So in front of them, I broke the contract.
Oh, God.
And I broke the ticket. And they're looking at me and saying, what is this guy doing? He says, call your mom. So he called his mom. Parents are great people, great people. And I told the mom and the dad, I said, listen, he's going to come play for us 1 year at Miami Prep. And, he's going to go on to college. Maybe the pros down the road. Mexico's always going to be there for him.
Which is true.
Correct. And let's let him get an education. This is what it's all about. And it made a lot of sense to them. So we signed him at Miami Prep. In our first year, we had a real good year. So this kid averaged a double-double the entire year. I think he finished at 20. And we don't make up numbers. We have a statistician there.
Yeah.
Averaged maybe 26. I think it was 26.3 and about 20.4 rebounds. He gets all these looks, but now we have an issue. He can't do any visits because of COVID. And college coaches can't come on down. And but they're watching on tape because we're very good about taping and, putting these things in YouTube and pulling them on our page to make sure the kid gets the exposure. And long story short, as we go towards the end of the season, it kind of opened up a little and coaches were allowed to go out. And I wanted to get involved with the IMG tournament because I know that coaches were going to be there. So we go and play IMG, and they had Kenyon Martin Jr.
Yep.
Kenyon Martin was drafted in the second round by the Houston Rockets. And we there, and there's about maybe 15, 16 college coaches there that were allowed, and everybody, was wearing the mask and all this other stuff. During that time, it was kind of like, a little bit of anything. And, of course, he can't take a visit and people wondering and all that stuff. So we lose to IMG, but Norchad finishes that game with 41 and 19.
Wow, yeah.
He blocks Kenny Martin's shot twice, the whole bit. Long story short, every coach is calling me in that gym. As I'm walking from the gym to the bus to head back, they're stopping me, and they're all offering all kinds of scholarships. So we made the decision to send him down to Arkansas State with Mike Bellato. With Bellato's a very good coach, a dear friend of mine's, and he did great.
Another Miami
guy, and for the 2 years that he was there, I thought Mike did an excellent job with him. But it was time. We were hearing a lot of stuff that if we come back, what is he going to do? Win another Player of the Year? Because he won Player of the Year, Freshman of the Year, and Defensive Player of the Year.
Wow. Okay.
So we said, okay, let's try the ACC. Let's try the SEC. Let's try, one of these conferences. So we sat down with his parents, and we sat down with Norchad and the people to be, and he said, no, I want to take my game to a higher level, and we put him in the transfer portal. When we put him in the transfer portal, he was top 5 in the country.
Right.
In the transfer portal is what he had accomplished. And I remember that 2 weeks we had to go on these Zoom calls with John Calipari at Kentucky, with Bob Huggins at West Virginia, with every single coach you could possibly think of, with at Georgetown with Patrick Ewing. And I think Norchad was the first guy to ever tell John Calipari no. We told Kentucky no. He didn't want to play with Oscar. And so we told them no. We told, Hall of Fame, John's going to be a Hall of Fame. And Bob Huggins, which is a Hall of Fame, we told him no.
He's one of my favorites, by the way.
Who's that?
Bob Huggins.
Oh, yeah, he's great. Great friend. And, of course, his assistant there is Ronnie Eberhard, which coached Barrett at Northeastern.
Yeah, exactly.
Have a great relationship
that's
with those
another guy
guys.
that's like, how many heart attacks does Bob Huggins have?
Yeah,
3?
Yeah, I know.
That guy loves the game.
He had one at the airport, saved his life.
Uh-huh, yeah.
And, and then that's the bad part about this business. Telling guys like that are your dear friends that the kid doesn't really want to go there. That's the bad part of the business that, I really don't enjoy because, I would have loved for him to go to West Virginia. I would have loved for him to go to Cal at Kentucky. I would have loved for him to go to all these places, but they only get to pick one school.
You know why I don't feel that bad about it?
What's that?
Because sometimes you have a player that you really believe in, and they'll say no to.
That's true.
They
That's a
they,
good
they,
point.
they don't take them all, right?
Right.
So and
That's
sometimes
true.
you really say you're gonna learn this the hard way because when he goes over there,
Right.
now you're gonna see
That's a good point.
what you missed out on
Yeah, sometimes you call them, you're talking about a player, and they say, nah, we like somebody else.
for whatever reason.
For whatever
Yeah.
reason. That definitely happens. And so it came down to Texas Tech, Miami, Florida State, took a visit to Leonard, and Georgetown, which he never took that visit. And so he decided to come to
Amen
Miami.
to that. I'm a Syracuse fan, so I hate Georgetown.
Okay. So he decided to come back to Miami. And so far so good. He's averaged, his first game he had about 15 boards. He had 13 boards. And actually today, after this podcast, I'm heading over to Miami. They're playing their third game today.
Right.
But anyway, that was an interesting story because he became the first kid from Nicaragua ever to play Division I. Think about it.
Wow, that's an interesting fact. I didn't know that.
Yeah, first kid from Nicaragua
Wow.
ever to play Division I basketball, and he's basically somebody that's very loved from Nicaragua. Actually, he's from Bluefields, which is on the coast, and they love him there, and we anticipate him having a great year at Miami. And there's a lot of pro scouts that are looking at him very closely, and they compare him a lot to Draymond Green and Fareed that played at Denver and a couple other guys. So we'll see how he goes. He's not in a hurry to sign a pro contract. He's only a sophomore, so he has 3 years of eligibility at Miami. But he's a special kid. So that happened to us our first year, Danny. Then our second year, Juan wanted to return from Mercer.
From Mercer, right.
And he called me up and he said, hey, listen, could I come back and kind of coach your Miami prep team? And I wasn't going to say no to him. So I decided that year to bring
Who
him.
coached the first year?
It was Tomas.
Okay.
And then I wound up coaching the second half of the season.
Okay.
And I didn't want to coach. I really don't. I mean, just didn't want to coach. And I said, I'm not coaching the second year of Miami Prep. And that's when we talked and we brought him back. And the second year we went 49-3. Now we're sending another 11 kids to college. And then the following year, which was once last year, we won 50-5. And we broke the record for most kids in college. We sent 21 kids in college. Now, not all went to Division I, but they went to Division II, NAIA.
Yeah. What matters is getting them signed.
It's getting them signed and getting an education, right,
Yeah.
Danny? Getting an education, playing the game that they love. So 21 went up there, and then I said, look, you want to go back to college? He says, yeah, let's go back to college. So that's when we helped him get a job at Southern Mississippi there, and that's what it is. So think about it, 3 years, 41-5, 49-3, 50-5, and at least over 45 kids that gone on to college.
Right.
And so, it's been very successful.
Yeah.
You don't make money doing this. Trust me, you don't make money doing this. And so it's about helping, getting kids into college. And, to me at least, God's paid me in so many different ways, and health in so many other different ways, that really money's not really what's all about. We try to get as much as we can to pay our bills.
Right.
And not lose.
That's what keeps it moving, yeah.
That's what keeps it moving. But we got big plans. Matter of fact, we're in with some top investors here in Miami. And I'm not supposed to say it, but we'll give you this exclusive, Danny. We're right now, we're very close to it. We actually have the site and we actually have the money of building a gorgeous facility, state-of-the-art facility that would have anywhere from 8 to 12 courts, some housing, a school, and kind of just try to compete against the IMG Montverde. And that's going to be kicking off the ground here soon. And I'll continue to keep you up to date.
In Miami?
In
or
Miami.
is this out of Miami?
No, this is in Miami.
Because that's big if it's in Miami.
Yeah, it is.
That's
Yeah,
huge.
and I'll tell you where it is. If you take the turnpike and you head south and you exit on Eureka, which
Yeah.
is 184th,
I live like one exit past that.
and you go east. And
Okay.
and once you pass US 1, there's some parcel to the left of that. And, they're doing a lot of residents around that area.
East.
And there's a big lanyard space that this investor and
Is it like a church there right now?
yeah, it's a little bit further than the church.
Okay, I know exactly where this is.
Yeah, so there's an area there that he owns the land. He's actually become my business partner in all this stuff here. Great guy, great basketball mind, great person, has helped us tremendously, and there's a lot of plans that we have. So we think that once we get that off board, now all of a sudden, we could become one of the best prep schools, not only in the state of Florida, but also in the country.
Yeah.
And I feel that once we do that, we'll take Miami Prep to another level.
Yeah. And I think what's important is I think a lot of the people that start these prep schools, they're, especially in this area, right? This region, because like you said, it hasn't been something that's very popular down here. It's just starting to grow in this. And we've had other people try. But I think when people like first start off, it's like all about the money, right? And this is where I say what's important. I say every private school will tell you that they're gonna play games, right? Because that's the way it goes. That's the way the prep school game is. You're gonna play a lot of games to get you some film to get noticed. What is important more than anything else? What is important, I think, year to year that the parent has to ask himself is, I don't care how many games you won or how many games you play.
Right.
How many kids are signing on the dotted line? And that's what's
Correct.
important, whether it's D1,
100%.
NAIA or not. Some people don't realize how important that is, that you're getting people to sign that dotted line. Because that in itself is hard.
Super hard. I mean, think about it, Danny. Less than 1% of kids in the entire country play Division I.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate and blessed. I think the number is 286, 287, close to 300 of kids that I've personally put in college for the last 2 decades.
Right.
Wherever, Division I, Division II.
Yeah. It doesn't matter. It's all the
junior
same.
college. Yeah. And that's what, that's a blessing. Because like you said, it's so very hard to get kids in college, especially nowadays with the transfer portal.
Exactly.
The transfer portal,
because you're not only battling the transfer portal, you're also battling JUCOs.
Absolutely, 100%. And right now, it's most of these college coaches. Think about it. If you're a college coach and you had a year left in your contract and you needed to win or they were going to fire you,
Yeah.
are you going to go to the transfer portal and give a scholarship to a kid that's been there, done that, is average 15 points a game, or are you going to take a risk with a high school kid that might take you 2 years to develop?
I agree.
So the transfer portal has made it tough on high school kids. High school kids are not being offered anymore. Now, if you're a high school kid, what do? Do you go to a prep school? Do you go to a JUCO? And if you don't have a scholarship, do you end your career, basketball career, or do you come to us for 1 year and have a 5th year and then give yourself an opportunity to be recruited? Because remember, what we do, Danny, is we reclassify you.
Yeah,
So if you're 2023, you come to us, you become a 2024.
24.
So now all of a sudden you got an extra year. And that's the reason why I wanted to open this platform. And so far we've been very successful.
And I think to also, and the reason, and now we're just talking to give information, right?
Right.
Because you have the prep school, and I think it's important for parents that are hearing this, for kids that are hearing this, to not only hear that part from you, but now I'm going to say this next part too that I think is some parents don't understand. It's even harder now, not only because of what you said about the transfer portal. The transfer portal also creates, makes it even harder because now what these MEAC, these Sun Valley coaches, all these guys are saying now, if I take this kid now as a freshman, right, and he turns out to be good,
right,
he's going to leave.
Absolutely. Transfer.
He's going to transfer immediately.
And not having to sit and play right away.
Right. So for these guys, it's more important, and look, I'm going to play devil's advocate too because I'm all about player, right?
Sure.
But I will say this. I also understand where these coaches are coming from because when you're talking to these coaches in these kind of lower Division I conferences, they're trying to leave too. Right. They're trying to win and get out to the next level, to the next stage.
Absolutely.
So what's happening there too is saying like, what we want the parents to understand why something like Miami Prep is important too is not only because first things first, if you have a scholarship offer on the table in high school, take it.
100%.
Right? The only way you shouldn't take it is if your ceiling is that much higher and maybe there's something that prevented that, whether it was like a COVID year or something like that. But for the most part, take it and run with it. But what we're getting at is we're saying these coaches are also getting smarter, saying, hey, listen, if I take this kid as a freshman, he produces, he's out. There's nothing that keeps him here. That transfer portal is open for him. He can go. But what I think that's happening is in that aspect, they're saying, why would I take a gamble on this kid if I can go get another kid from another bench in D1? Maybe he didn't play a lot, but he's got some experience. I'm going to build this older group, try to win as many games as I can, and leave. That's where something like Miami Prep is so important because you say, man, taking these kind of situations makes no sense. Go the prep school route, get a little older, let these guys come and take you then. It just makes more sense.
It does, Danny. You explain that to a T. And the other thing is when you're in the transfer portal and you pick up a transfer portal kid, you can't transfer again.
Exactly.
So now you're stuck at that university.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of variables that go in with this decision making. From our end, we just want to give kids that have nowhere to go,
Right.
that we feel are good enough that with the next year we can get them into college.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of the prep schools in the Northeast. Remember, all the good prep schools, and back in the prep schools that were in the Northeast, you had the Notre Dame academies, you had the Wichita Preps, you had all these prep schools, and the reason why they went there is because they needed an extra year, or the schools didn't have a scholarship for the 2023, so they would put them in a prep school
For the 2024.
so
right.
they could get them in the 2024 class.
Yep. That happens a lot too.
It happens a lot, and again, from our perspective, if you are a kid that needs an extra year.
Perfect example, by the way, that just clicked in. Anthony Simons was one of those kids.
Absolutely.
Because he was going to go to Louisville.
Absolutely.
And then he went to IMG and got the,
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's more of a coincidence because Patino
Right.
ended up having to get stepped down.
Right.
But that's just to give an example of a kid of that stature.
Of that statue. And then there's a lot of kids that come to us and say, hey, coach, what, I got I got scholarships at the low D1 level. Gee, I think I'm at high level. I'm a Division One high level player. So they want to come in and have that year to prove to coaches, and then have their recruiting open again. And now they get recruited at a higher level. Again, there's a lot of variables when it comes to that. They're all positive. And so, if you're a high school player that doesn't have anywhere to go and you're looking to have one more year of exposure,
Yeah.
and maybe you're short a class in credit. Remember, at the prep level, you're allowed to take one class as a makeup. So let's say you're short one English or you're short one math, you're allowed to do it with us, and then you become a full qualifier. But I think, we talked about it earlier, Danny, you hit it on the dot. I think the exposure part's what's important, and we provide that exposure. Last year we went to New York, and we played the top 3 teams in New York. We played our Xavier Lutheran in the Bronx, which hadn't lost a game in 2 years. We played the Patrick School in New Jersey that hadn't lost, and then we played another team in New York.
Wait, St. Patrick's or the
St. Patrick's.
Okay, yeah.
Now it's called the Patrick School.
Oh, they changed the name?
Yeah,
okay,
it's
I didn't know
St.
that.
Patrick's called the Patrick.
That's why I was a little confused if it
Yeah.
was the same school or not.
They're out of
St.
Jer-
Patrick's was a big-time school.
Big
yeah.
time school. So they're out of Jersey, and they had a real good team. So we beat them.
Speaking
over
of Bynum, I think Bynum played there.
there. Yeah, he did.
He did, right? Yeah.
He did.
Okay.
He did. So and then we went and played another team in New York. So we went 3-0. So that gave the kids great exposure. And then after that, we go to Rhode Island, and we're playing one of the top tournaments in the country, and we went 1-1 there. And then we play for the national championship, and we lose the national championship last year in South Carolina on a missed free throw. So think about it, the exposure that all these kids got. That's why
Yeah.
we were very fortunate to get a lot of kids in college this past year.